Okay guys, so the next step after creating our enemy is going to be to code it. So to start off, we're going to go inside of our yellow events tab, and we're going to start again with this when I receive green flag. Later on, when we do create the intro screen, we're going to have the broadcast there. So that's why we want to make sure that we have everything set up for it. So that's why we're using this when I receive green flag. So once you guys place that, the next thing we want to do is hide our enemy because we don't want it to show up automatically on our game. And now this is where we're actually going to be getting our score from, because as we destroy our enemy, we should be getting a score bump. So we're going to go into our variables tab, and since we don't need our speed anymore, we can just check this off to remove it. We're going to click on make a variable, and it's going to be for all sprites, and we're just going to call this score. And then we're going to click on OK. Now that we have our score, we're going to go ahead and add a set block underneath. We're going to change this variable to score, and we're going to have it set to 0. That way, every time we restart our game, our score ends up being 0. The next thing we're going to do is go into looks and add a set size to, and this is where we're going to be changing our size to our enemy. Keeping in mind, we still want it to be small so it's not taking too much screen space, but not the same size as our player. We want it to be just a little bit bigger to, again, add that intimidation and scariness of it. So for right now, I'm just going to do 35. Once we're done, underneath this, we're going to go into for our control and add a forever. We're going to add a wait 4 seconds, and this is how many times we have to wait before an actual enemy appears. So if you want to make this a little bit shorter, you can by changing the amount of time that it takes for it to show up. Once we have that, we're going to go ahead and scroll down, still inside of our control, and we're going to add a create clone of myself. So now that we have this, the next step of our code is going to be how we want our enemy to move. So to do this, we're going to go into control and add a when I start as a clone, since it's the clones that it's going to be moving for us. And now we're going to go inside of our motions tab and add a go to XY block, because we want to tell it exactly where we want it to start and where we want it to head down. For our X, we're going to go into operators and add a pick random, because we don't want our player to know exactly where our enemy is going to be showing up, because it's always going to be showing up in the same point every single time. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to tell it pick a random spot in the horizontal area. And then once you pick a spot, that's where you're going to go down. So the 1 is going to be changed to -200. And the 10 is going to be changed to 200. And then the Y is going to be 180 so that a character can show up. After that, we're going to go back into control and we're going to add a repeat until. We're going to go into operators and use a less than. Inside of this bubble, we're going to go inside the blue motions tab and add a Y position bubble. And we're going to change this Y to this 50 to -180. Once we've done that, still inside of the blue motions tab, we're going to add a change Y by, and we're going to make this -4. And then the last thing that we're going to add is going to be in control, and we're going to add a delete this clone. So what it's basically saying is pick a random spot in the X, so let's say here, now go down, because we're telling it exactly where to show up on our Y, but then we're telling it for our Y position, if it's less than this number, we're going to continue subtracting this 4 from our actual Y position, which is this 180, until it's lower than this number. So essentially what it's doing is it's moving it down, and once it reaches this bottom screen, that's when it's going to delete the clone. The last thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that when our player is the one that kills it, that's when we actually have a score of +1 being added to our score, and that's where we're getting our points from. So to do that, still inside of control, we're going to add a when I start as a clone. We're going to go into looks, and we're going to add a show. Then we're going to go into control and add a forever if, so that it's checking. We're going to go into sensing and use touching. For right now, we're going to leave mouse pointer because we don't have the shooting sprite for our player. So it's going to stay like this for now, but later on, once we do have it, that's what we're going to change it to. So we're going to leave this for right now as a placeholder. We're going to go into variables and we're going to add a change block. We're going to change it to score. We're going to leave this as 1 unless you guys want to change the amount of points you get when you destroy this enemy. And then underneath this, we're going to go into control and we're going to add a delete this clone. Okay. So again, like I said, this code is not going to work because we have this when I receive. So if you guys want to test it out, you can just add a when green flag is clicked and move this top code over. And then you can test out your game by clicking on the green flag. And then you see that the creature is showing up. Obviously, it got destroyed because of my mouse pointer. So if you see the size, if you feel like the size has to be a little bit smaller, you guys can go ahead and do that. It's kind of up to you, but just remember that once you've fixed everything you needed to with the size, to move it over to the hide and then delete this when green flag is clicked. That way, this is still perfect and set up for when we add our intro screen later on. And with that, you guys are all set.